Hey guys, and welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be doing something kind of different. Well, okay, this is the first thing. But today I'm going to be doing, not like a recommendations video, but sort of just sharing with you the books I read when I was a kid / when I was before a teen. Yeah, I will recommend you to, like, let your kids read them, but most of them are, like, almost to the YA stage, so you know, they're not good for under 10 years old or under 12. I do have some that are like scary stories, so those aren't good for kids either. So I'm just gonna get right into them. I made a whole list on my Goodreads, so if you follow me on Goodreads, you'll see my shelf that says books I read as a kid or something like that. So I'm gonna get into them. Some of them I have with me here just because I still own them, but other ones I've read either from my school libraries or I had them, but then we gave them away when we moved. So, I'm gonna get into it. So, the first one that I have is probably a staple here everywhere because it was a movie adaptation first that bombed, and then a Netflix TV show. And that is the series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket. Again, I did meet him, but if you guys live under a rock, if you guys don't know, this series is about 3 children who lose their parents in a house fire, I want to say. And their parents are part of this like secret organization that like the kids don't know about, and so Violet, Sunny, and Klaus all have to be put under the care of this guy called Count Olaf, and basically he just wants their fortune. And this is good for kids. I read this when I was younger. The writing is very like big for kids to read, and it's also like gonna make them learn some words because, you know, the wording is like, they got some big words in there, but they'll tell you what it means, basically. So I did read this when I was a kid. I read all the way up to probably the last book that I barely remember, and I tried to do a reread in anticipation for the series, but the TV series that is, but I just didn't get all the way through just because I forgot. But it's still good for kids. Like, yeah, it deals with some like themes of like, you know, their parents dying, but like I still think it's a good children's book. The next book that I actually have that's kind of in conjunction to that series, sort of, is The Mysterious Benedict Society. I don't have a picture of it because, or I don't have a copy of it, so here's a picture of it. I don't exactly remember what it was about. I know I remember reading it in like middle school, or at least beginning of high school, because my sisters had a copy. The next book is one that I read when I was in high school, and that is Gone by Michael Grant, and I read this whole entire series actually until the later books. This is for teens, so I wouldn't recommend reading this to children because it's got a weird concept. I think I've talked about it before in a reading vlog or something, but it's about a world where adults and people over 14 years old go missing this one day after like a nuclear explosion that nobody knows about. And then all these 14-year-olds run rampant around this town in California. It's a whole series, and then eventually people get powers from it. It's weird, but like it's something that I read when I was in like 7th grade. So it's got a special place in my heart, along with like Maximum Right and like all the other books that I've read. The next book is How to Steal a Dog, and this is by Barbara O'Connor. And so this book is about a girl whose family, I believe, is homeless or living out of their car, and one day this girl sees that there is this missing dog poster up all around the town, and there's a reward, and she just wants to help her family and give her family the money so that way they can actually live off of it. And they have to steal this dog, and then I think she ends up getting a conscience, and she gives the dog back, and then the dog like, and then they give the money. I don't really remember. This was really a long time ago. So, this is, I think, good for young children. Not young children like babies, but like before 10, I would say. I don't know. I just think that it's a really good lesson to be learned for kids. And I think the girl is like 11 or 12, so I think it's also good for that age bracket. The next one is another staple in the world, I guess. I mean, it's a staple for me. The Invention of Hugo Cabret by Brian Selznick. Sorry, I had to like remember his name. Brian Selznick wrote The Invention of You, and so it's basically like a huge picture book, but like each page is like expertly drawn, and there's also a story involved. So it's about this kid whose dad died in a theater fire, and his dad was an inventor, and so this kid basically wants to learn how to fix things and be like his dad, but he's really poor. He's living in a train station, and he has to steal things in order to make money, or at least survive. And it's about like this family and how he kind of gets to know them by stealing something from their like toy shop so he can fix this thing that his dad left for him, and also kind of learn about this family, or at least the head of this family, the grandfather, and how he kind of ties into all of the inventions and stuff, which is, it's really cool. There's actually like a whole trilogy, I think, but I don't really remember what happened, just because I did not read the second or third books. I only read The Invention of You, and I read that book like over and over, like cover to cover, so many times because it was so pretty, and it was so quick to go through, even though it was like this big, because the pictures were beautiful. Like, the next book that I have on this list is Fever 1793, and so this book I read when I was young, and as all of these books are, I shouldn't really say that, but this book I read, I think, elementary school or middle school, and it's about the yellow fever and how it affects this one girl's life and how she survives the yellow fever, and how she's basically on the run from trying to get the yellow fever. And as I said, this is probably good for middle schoolers, just because that way they can learn what the yellow fever is about and what happened, but also to understand like loss and death and stuff like that, if that makes sense. I don't really know, but I mean, I remember really enjoying it. I think I read it like 2 or 3 times because it was actually really good. So, recommendation. Yeah. The next one is an actual children's book, and you guys shouldn't be surprised because it's literally named after me, or I'm not named after me, but it's got my name. And that is Olivia by Ian Falconer. So I had a copy of this book when I was really young. My mom would read it to me when I was young, and it was like literally like not like torn apart, like the cover was kind of like dented and stuff like that. I remember. But it's about this pig. Her name is Olivia, and it's like her adventures. There's like a whole series, but also the first book that I'm talking about is about her, I guess, learning about paintings or artists in the museum, and she wants to be an artist, and she draws all over stuff. I think, your girl does not remember. Next up is one that again has been made into a movie adaptation, and that is Holes by Louis Satcher. And it follows this boy who is sent to this camp, and they do like manual labor because he committed a crime, and then he has to deal. It tells the story of how Kissing Kate Bartlett was a thing. I don't really know how to explain it. Like, I just remember the movie really vaguely and the book very vaguely. But I did read this for like a project or something in school, in like middle school, and it was really good. The next one I actually have on hand this time, and that is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. So again, this is part of the series. It was a movie adaptation, you guys know this. I do own the whole entire series because there's a story behind it, and I'll tell you guys about it. But I think I started reading this in 2nd or 3rd grade. That's how long ago it was. And your girl could not keep track of her books, and she kept losing the only copy she had of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, so her teacher kept giving her a new one until the point where she had the whole entire series given to her by this teacher so I could keep the book. So, if you guys don't know, this series is kind of like religious, and C.S. Lewis is kind of like, he's like not, I don't think, a good guy, just because he doesn't believe in certain things. So I don't really know the full like story behind it, but this series is kind of a not retelling, but it tells like a religious story, and so this second book follows 4 siblings: Susan, Peter, Edmund, and Lucy, as a are sent away from their house because they live in the era of World War II, so all these families are being uprooted and sent. The kids are sent to the countryside and everything, so that way they wouldn't be killed by bombs and stuff like that. So they were sent away, and they were sent to this professor's house, and this professor in this wardrobe had this. It was just a wardrobe, but these kids walked through it, and they are in another world called Narnia. If you guys, I don't need to explain Narnia to you guys, because, like, watch the movies, like, read the books. But this whole series basically spans about, I don't know if it's like 20 or 30 years or something like that, and it follows all these different characters. There's only like 2 books about the Pevensies in the series, which is, or no, there's 3 books. There's this one, there's Prince Caspian, and then there is The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and they all follow as the kids grow up, basically. And I think I like the movies a lot, and I don't remember much about the books just because I read them all not too, like, back in like 5th or 6th grade, so there's a lot of time between then and now, so I don't really remember. We're on our last 3 books. I'm gonna save the last 2, the 2 that I really should explain for last because it's easier to do that. So the next book is The Wrinkle in Time by Madeline Liangle, and this book has been around for a while. I think it was published in the 70s or 80s. I read it when I was in 8th grade. I think it was 8th grade, and because my teacher had copies of it. So, though granted, I read the series out of order, which, like, I didn't know because there wasn't, like, really a guide to how to read the series. But it follows these children who lost their parents, and or at least lost their dad, to this mysterious world, and they have to go find him, and a lot of stuff ensues. I don't really remember what happens, as is the theme for, like, all of these books. And then the last 2 books I want to talk about are 2 scary stories. Well, there's like another one that I remember reading, but I can't remember the name and I can't find it on Goodreads, so that's a problem. But anyway, there's a bunch of horror books that I read when I was a kid, or at least like not really horror books, but you know what I mean. I read a lot of R.L. Stine books, and so I don't remember the ones that I read off the top of my head. There was this one about best friends, and the best friend basically wanted to, like, become the other one. It was creepy. It was really creepy and really scary, and I don't know what to tell you about it other than that it was really creepy. But the next 2 books are kids' scary stories. So the first one that I want to talk about is, like, one that I think of when I think of, like, supernatural stories that have influenced my life, that influenced my writing, as in, like, my supernatural book, and that is Wait Till Helen Comes by Mary Downing Ham. And it's about this girl and her family who moved to this house, the backyard is basically a cemetery, and it's about how this girl's little sister is basically being influenced by this ghost of Helen, because Helen was killed, or she drowned, or no, she didn't drown. She was burned up in a fire that she caused, and she caused the death of her family as well because of this fire out in, like, this house in their backyard. And so she basically wants to, like, get revenge on people who move into that house. But it was, like, one of those scary stories that really, like, stuck with me for, like, my 22 years of living because it's really creepy. Like, it's creepy for kids, and this is a kid's book. So, like, and this book came out in like, I don't know when it came out. It came out a while before I was born though. So like it's one of those weird, creepy, scary stories, and like it's insane. And then the last book I wanted to talk about is Deep and Dark and Dangerous, and this is by, oh, Mary Downingham as well. I forgot it was by the same author. And it's about this family again who moves into this, I guess, lake house or something. And this girl is 13 years old, and she finds this like weird picture in the attic of two children and her mother, and she knows who like one of the girls is because I think it's like her aunt, but then she doesn't know who the other girl is, and so she finds out that it's this like girl named Emma. I don't really know. I'm trying to read the description, but it's not really working out so well. So she ends up going down to the lake with, I guess, her mom's best friend Lucy's daughter Emma, and Emma starts seeing this girl named Teresa, and Teresa basically wants to drown her so that way they can be best friends. Kind of like in the same case as Wait Till Helen Comes, which I didn't mention that, but it's kind of the same case. They're pretty creepy books, not gonna lie. Like, I remember reading them and they were like watching a horror movie. I don't watch horror movies, so it's like pretty creepy. Even for kids. So like I would recommend them for like young teens, like 10 to 12. Again, 10 to whenever you want to read it. But it's pretty creepy, and that's enough said about that, because if I think about them, I might have horror nightmares. So there's that. So, thank you guys so much for watching this video of all of like my childish reads, or the books that I read when I was a kid. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. My name's Olivia, you're on Bookish Perkins Science channel, and I hope to see you soon in another video.